All right, folks, here we go. Notes on photosynthesis. But first, I have a joke for you, or a little bit of a riddle. The one plant asked the other plant, "Are you hungry?" And the other plant said, "I could use a light snack." Light, photosynthesis. Let's get going. Okay, again, these notes correlate to the outline that you have already for you on Canvas. Let's continue with it in the photosynthesis section. And this is the definition of photosynthesis: the process by which autotrophs convert sunlight into usable stored form of energy, which would be sugar or food. Light harvested by autotrophs. I'll move myself over here now. Here is just a diagram of what's happening, all right? You've got the sunlight coming in, you've got carbon dioxide coming in, and leaving, you've got water, you've got oxygen, and sugar is created. Remember, sugar that we usually talk about is glucose, and the chemical formula is C6H12O6. You have to remember that chemical formula, C6H12O6. Okay, you notice the bottom here is the actual equation for photosynthesis, and it looks remarkably similar to the one we did in our last set of notes. But you're going to have to write this down. You need this equation down there. 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus light energy gives us C6H12O6, which is sugar or glucose, plus oxygen. This is what's happening in general terms. This is what's happening in chemical terms. Got to know both. All right, so organisms depend on three types of energy. They are light energy, chemical energy, and heat energy. Make sure you put that down in your set of notes there. Light wavelengths carry energy, or waves of light carry energy. Photosynthetic organisms use this energy to make food. Here is a close-up of a chloroplast, and this is going to be extremely important for us. Wavelengths of light that are absorbed, red and blue, power photosynthesis. So on your set of notes there, it says, what wavelengths do plants use for photosynthesis? You want to write in there red and blue. Green is reflected and provides the color of the chlorophyll pigment. So they're reflecting the green and they're absorbing the red and the blue. Hey, down here. Right, this is a structure of a leaf. And you'll see that there's some terms that you recognize, like epidermis, being the outer layer. Our epidermis is our skin, outer layer of our skin. You'll see there's a cuticle. If you take water and pour it directly on a plant leaf, it's going to beat up and roll off. That is because of this waxy cuticle here. Helps maintain the moisture of the plant inside. You've got the palisade parenchyma layer, a spongy parenchyma layer, and a lower epidermis. You get the cuticle on the bottom too. You see there is a vein and a stoma, which is an opening, xylem and phloem. Phloem is for food, xylem is for water, and guard cells. Somebody did a guard cell during your presentation of specialized cells. Someone did that guard cell. You're going to need this information to do the activity later on today. Here is a close-up look of the stoma and the guard cells. Just showing you what it looks like underneath the microscope. All right, the leaf and photosynthesis. You'll notice that this is a close-up of a leaf. Again, you see the cuticle, the upper epidermis, the mesophyll layer, the lower epidermis. You see all those stuff in there, the guard cells here, the leaf vein. But you see this is now a close-up of one chloroplast. And this thing has labels in it. And it has parts in it and stuff you're going to need to know. Okay, you should now be back on your notes on page 4 with the first part titled Location of Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis occurs in the chloroplast, which is a plastid, which are abundant in leaves of plants. If you see this over here, when we looked at the LOD, if you were in class, we saw a bunch of chloroplasts in each one of the cells. These chloroplasts contain light-absorbing pigments like chlorophyll. So you've answered the first few questions of your notes there. Okay, now we're getting to the parts of the chloroplast. Okay, first, the chloroplast is a double-membraned organelle. You'll see there's an inner membrane and outer membrane here. These stacks of quarters are called thylakoids. The stroma is the juice inside of this organelle, kind of like the cytoplasm of itself, of its own thing. So you've got the thylakoid. It's the internal membrane system. Right, location of step 1 of photosynthesis called the light reaction. It resembles a stack of quarters and contains chlorophyll pigment. Stacks of thylakoids are called grana or granum, right? So one of them is a thylakoid, but the entire stack here is called grana or granum. The stroma is the second part. This is the gel-like substance surrounding the thylakoids. It's the location of step 2, or the dark reaction, or the Calvin cycle. These two items should go in your notes where it's labeled. List and describe the two main parts of the chloroplast. The thylakoid and the stroma are the two main parts. So if you need to pause me to do so, to write this down, go ahead and do so. Okay, so now on your diagram, you have the same exact diagram I have in front of me here. So you're going to label the parts of the chloroplast. Oops, let's do that together here, okay? So the outer membrane is going to be this one over here. So on your notes, label this one here, outer membrane. And if that's the outer membrane, then this one here is the inner membrane. And remember that one of these is called the thylakoid, and it's on your notes for you to spell correctly. And then over here in this juice, or in this area that looks open, it's actually filled with a gel-like substance called the stroma. And then a stack of these is called the granum or grana. So you've got grana, outer membrane, inner membrane, thylakoid, stroma. Okay, so now we're back to ATP. Remember, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it's the energy used in the cell. Anytime you see this exploded star here, you're going to know that it's always ATP. Even if that's not labeled there, that means ATP, that exploded star. So ATP on your notes, dash, write in adenosine triphosphate. And it says, how is energy released from the ATP molecule? Well, remember, energy is released by the breaking of the bonds, right here. Energy is released when bonds between phosphate molecules are broken. So the bonds being broken releases the energy. Which molecule has more energy? The question says ATP or ADP. What do you think? ATP has 3 bonds. ADP has 2 bonds. So if you have more bonds, the more that can possibly break, the more energy is given off. So ATP has more energy than ADP. Okay, here's the last part for today. There are 2 steps of photosynthesis that we hit on earlier. Part 1 is called the light-dependent reaction, or the light reaction. It needs the sun. Part 2 is called the Calvin cycle, light-independent reaction, or the dark reaction. And it does not need the sun. And you'll notice here, we've got the light reaction occurring in the chloroplast, and the other part does not occur in the chloroplast, right? It occurs in the stroma. That's all for today. Come back in the class and we'll discuss it.